Hi there, my name is Miss Townsend and I love math. Welcome to Math with Townsend. This video is for grade 9 academic students who are reviewing for the EQAO and want a bit more practice. It's video number 3 and this video is about percent. In this video we're going to look at questions that involve calculating percentage, percentage discount, adding tax, and commission. So here's a first question. You'll notice it comes actually from the applied EQAO, but it's a good place to start if you're reviewing percentages. It says examine the diagram below. So they give us a rectangular prism with height, width, and length given. Which statement is true? So is height 40% of the width? So is height 40% of the width? So in other words, is 40 out of 50 equal to 40%? Well, obviously it isn't. 40 out of 50 is 0.8, and actually it's 80%. And that should be obvious without doing any calculations, that the height is more than half of this, which means it's more than 50%, so there's no way that the answer is A. Is the height 50% of the length? Well, 50% is a kind of an obvious one, right? 50% of the length would be 30. This is not 30. So we know that it can't be B. Is the height 80% of the width? Okay, well, let's look at that one. So is the height 80% of the width? Well, I already did that math. Here's the height, here's the width. When I do the calculation for percent, I get 80%. So yes, the height is 80% of the width. And just to check this one, the height is 125% of the width. Well, if it's more than 100%, then it needs to be a bigger number. The height is not a bigger number, so it's definitely not D. So make sure you can calculate percent, and basically calculating percent is what you do when you get a quiz. If you got 40 out of 50 on a quiz, most students immediately pull out their calculator and they do this math anyway. So we should be able to calculate percentage of. So let's look at some other types of percent questions that you might see on the academic EQAO. For example, Sam is interested in buying a TV. At fair deal, the TV is priced at $599.99 and is on sale for 20% off. At big discount, the same TV is $899.99 but on sale for 30% off. What is the difference of the sale price of the TV between the two stores? So there's two ways that I like to teach and discuss calculating discount, and I'm going to show you both of them. Let's do fair deal first of all. So at fair deal, we have $599.99, and it's 20% off. So what most people would probably do is therefore, logically, calculate 20% of $599.99. So let's do that math. So if the discount is 20% off, then I can calculate 20% of $599.99. And again, to calculate percent of, 20% divide by 100. The word of means multiply. So 20% of 600, 20% of 600 would be $120. And yes, you're perfectly fine rounding that to 600. And therefore, if I'm supposed to pay $599.99, but the discount is $120 off, then the new price would be $479.99. So I calculated what 20% would be. It's 120, and then I subtracted it. So at fair deal, it's $479.99 on sale. Now the other place, big discount, it's a $899 TV, but they're giving me 30% off. So I'm going to show how to calculate discount a little bit differently. And certainly the students who are from my class are familiar with this concept because I like to do math kind of quickly. So 30% off, and this is the way I like to do it in class, means you're paying 70%. So if you are going to save me 30%, then I'm going to pay, in fact, 70%. So instead of doing two calculations, I'm going to do one calculation where I calculate what it is that I have to pay. I pay 70% of this amount. So I have to pay 70% of the original price, and 70% of 900 is $630. Or maybe it's $629.99, whatever. Either way, clearly you should buy your TV at this place. Now, always check, what is the actual thing I'm supposed to answer? What is the difference in the sale price between the two stores? So just because I think I'm done, I wasn't done. Make sure you finish the question. So now I would say, therefore, oh, I like the color. Come on, there we go. Therefore, the difference, oh dear, that went a little crazy. The difference is, so 630 minus 480 is 150 bucks. So definitely buy it over here because that's good money. Okay, so that's hopefully a straightforward example of how to calculate and deal with a percentage discount. Now, obviously what we haven't talked about yet is tax. So here's a question where we're going to look at both discount and tax. It says Aiden is buying a new CD player. The CD player was selling for $84.79 and now is on sale for 25% off. Which of the following is closest to the total cost of the CD player, including 13%? So obviously I cut off all of the multiple choice, so we're just going to find the total cost. Yeah, find the total cost. We'll pretend it's not multiple choice. So obviously the first thing I'm going to do is calculate the discount amount. So the way that I work it is if it's 25% off, then that means you pay, or Aiden pays, I guess, 75% of the original cost. So I'm going to calculate 75% of $84.79. So it's a way of calculating the new price in one simple step. So 75% of 84.79, and that gives me $63.59. So that's how much it's going to cost me, but then I have to include tax. So to add tax, again, there are two ways to do it. Method number one is to multiply by 13%, so 0.13, and then add. Perfectly fine, absolutely no problem with that method. But I like my short method, my quick method. When you pay tax, you pay 13% plus 100% of the actual cost. So in fact, you can simply do this, and that will calculate both the original price and the tax. Now, I don't mean original price as in we're going to ignore the discount. I mean, this is what I'm paying. I have to pay 100% of this, and I have to pay 13% on top of that. So 1.13, it will get me my tax result in one step. And I like to do math in one step when it's possible. Oops, so not 84.79, I almost forgot about the discount. 63.59 is the cost. And then to add tax all in one step, figure out exactly what I owe the store, and I would determine that I need to pay $71.85. And if you're following along in your calculator, you'll notice that I'm not rounding, and that's because when you're working with money and tax, generally you don't round. It's kind of the only time in math where I say don't round properly, just leave it the way it is. So 71.85 would be the total cost. Good. Now what? So now the other thing we want to talk about in this video is commission. So commission is when you get paid a certain percent of your sales amount. So the idea is that if you work in a store that sells, let's say, clothing, that you're encouraged to sell a lot more clothing because you get paid based on how much you sell. That's what commission is. So let's look at this question. It says Josie works in a sports store. She receives 8% of the total sales in one day. One day she receives $35 for her portion of the total sales. What are the total sales for that day? So please note, this question is not asking you what 8% of $35 is. Just think about it logically. I mean, imagine getting paid 8% of $35. I mean, that's less than $4. I mean, that's like $3. That doesn't make sense, right? So what this is saying is 8% of something is $35. So, and our goal is to find that thing. So oh, it kind of looks like a silly face. 8% of something is $35. Make sure you can read the question and see that that's what it says. So our question is, how do I find that thing? Well, let's do kind of some really nice math here. And instead of saying question mark, let's call it X. I don't know what it is. Let's call it X. So I could write that 8% of X is $35. So this is 8% multiplied by the total sales. I don't know what they are. I'm calling them X equals 35. And this is why when you calculate commission, you do division instead of multiplication. Because someone already did the multiplication. That's how they got this answer. And your job is to undo the multiplication and figure out what the original amount was. So instead of multiplying by the percent, this is when you divide. Dividing gets rid of a math that has already occurred. So these total sales must be $437.50. And again, I could check that really quickly because 8% of that number is $35. So in a day, she sold $437.50, and therefore she got paid $35 commission for doing this much in sales. And this is a similar question. It says Ezra works part-time at a clothing store. He earns $80 per week plus 6% of the value of his weekly sales. This week, Ezra earns $119. What is the total value of his sales? So Ezra earns $80 plus 6% of his sales. So this is what the question says. I've just written it more mathematically. $80 plus 6% of his sales. So this week, Ezra earns $119. So I know that he made $119 this week. So I can substitute that in. Now the only thing I don't know is how much his sales were. So again, you could introduce the variable like X, but I could also leave it like this. So I need to find out what were his sales. So think about solving for this. I'm going to subtract 80 from both sides. So 119 minus 80 is 39. So that means once I get rid of the $80 that Ezra automatically makes, I know that $39 out of this 119 came from sales. So 6% of something is $39. To figure out what that is, this is when you do division. So 6% of something gave him 39 bucks. So in your calculator, do division. 39 divided by 0.06. So $650 must be the sales. And obviously, I mean, the nice thing about working with questions involving percent and money is you can tell if something makes sense, right? I mean, 6% of 650. We know that 10% is $6. Sorry, $65. So, you can kind of make sense. I hope that helps.